Lilies and Lilacs, Episode 3, Dragon Sighting. A dragon. A real-life dragon near Autumn Bliss. That was the kind of thing that happened in imagination or fairy tales. But this wasn't a whimsical story. Tessica walked along the streets of the city as she needed a little break from the hustle and bustle of her tavern. It had been a week since the dragon had been first spotted flying over the stretches of forest to the south. Since that sighting, the entire city became way more alert and apprehensive. Locals walked about a little more guarded, with eyes that constantly danced to the sky. The mayor called for a state of alertness, rather than calling for emergency. So far, the dragon was seen at a distance, or its roars were heard as frightening echoes. It hadn't come to the town or outlying farms yet. What was it doing near Autumn Bliss? Hunting? Breeding? Laying eggs? Tessica chuckled, if for nothing else but the humor of it all. A couple of days ago, 2 adventuring parties came into Lilies and Lilacs and bought out 8 rooms for at least a couple of weeks. It was great for business, so she didn't quite mind, but a small tickle danced at the back of her conscious thoughts. Was this a hint of things to come? All 8 adventurers were drinking and eating at L&L too. Too bad there weren't any quests for the adventurers to peruse over. Tessica sent a letter 4 days ago, and she would no doubt be solutionless for quite some time. She rounded the corner and then spotted a friendly face across the street.
Hey, Bonta!
When Tessica had first seen the half-ogre, she was walking alone with a small frown on her face. However, when Bonta noticed Tessica, a smile pushed through her gloom. Tessica walked over to her.
Hey, are you okay? You look upset.
Oh, it's nothing.
I don't think I believe you. Have you eaten yet?
You mean lunch? No, not yet.
Tessica grabbed Bonta's muscular arm and pulled her along.
Okay, great. Then I'm stealing you. Monica and I were going to eat at a cafe, and I'd love to have you join us.
Oh, I don't know. I'd probably ruin your experience, and I wouldn't want to impose.
Tessica paused and looked up into Bonta's eyes. The rims of the half-ogre's eyes were wet, and the frown had returned with greater strength.
Now, why would you think you'd ruin an experience?
Bonta's eyes danced away for a moment, before returning to Tessica's.
Come have lunch and be around friends, okay? It will make you feel better. My treat. No arguing, and it will just be between us girls, okay?
Bonta was silent for a long moment, but then she nodded. Tessica led the way down the street to a lovely little cafe off the common streets of Autumn Bliss. The cafe was called Duck Meat and Sandwiches.
Oh, I've never been here before. I guess it has duck meat and sandwiches on the menu?
Nope. It's actually a soup restaurant.
Tessica led Bonta inside. The restaurant was about half full, and Phonica was at a square table toward the front of the restaurant. Phonica smiled, but then noticed Bonta beside Tessica.
Oh, well, hello, Bonta. I didn't know you were joining us, but I'm happy you're here.
Yeah, I saw her on the way here, and she needed some extra tender love and care.
Oh, well, in that case, I'm really glad you're here. Please, sit.
Bonta and Tessica sat at the table, and the server came by to collect their orders. Phonica ordered some sort of sea chowder. Tessica ordered some chicken noodle soup. And Bonta ordered some hearty chili. As soon as the server left, Phonica grinned at Bonta.
So tell me, my dear, what seems to be bothering you?
Oh, I don't want to say. It sounds stupid.
It won't sound stupid. What's going on?
It's just that some of the other lumberjacks made some comments that really hurt my feelings.
What did they say?
Nothing I haven't heard before. Is that even a woman? Did you see her stomach? What's that smell? It must be Bonta.
That's terrible. I'm so sorry. Is there anyone you can report them to?
I don't want to cause any trouble at my work. I really love being a lumberjack. I get to go out into the woods, chop down some trees, and do some good old-fashioned physical labor. And most of the time, I go off by myself, and I can meet my quota alone while the others cluster together. My foreman is usually nice to me, especially because I always bring back the most wood.
Well, that's good. Your boss isn't one of the assholes making fun of you.
He doesn't, as far as I know. But he doesn't stop it. He condones it, which makes me feel reluctant about reporting it. What happens if they fire me?
Well, couldn't you just go into the business for yourself?
Bonta paused for a moment and then regarded both of them in equal measure.
But I couldn't do that.
Why not?
I wouldn't know where to start.
Well, you're in luck. Both of us are entrepreneurs, and we could help show you the way.
Of course we can. And if you're not happy at your job, and if you're good at it, then maybe you can do it better.
Do you really think so? Do you really think I have what it takes to be like you?
Of course. So, how about after we eat our soups, we do a Ladies in Power session?
Sounds good to me.
Bonta smiled and then nodded. Tessica grinned widely as she walked down the street. Her spirit burned like a fresh bonfire, and the day seemed even more bright and beautiful than it did before lunch. When she had first seen Bonta, the poor girl trudged down the street with a crushing sense of despair. Half-ogres weren't very common in Autumn Bliss, and people certainly didn't make it easy for her. However, after their lunch, a renewed twinkle glimmered in Bonta's eyes, for now she was set upon a familiar path that Tessica herself had first started on only a couple years ago. She rounded a corner, but then stopped abruptly as a man nearly bumped into her. The man, a half-fae, stopped and gaped at her with quite surprise. He was taller than Tessica, by 4 inches or so, with a set of broad shoulders, a lean frame, and longer, thick black hair. His eyes were a light blue hue. The man wore a dark purple robe, with a bright yellow rope belt, and a pair of leather boots. He also wore dark purple gloves on his hands. Naswald Vosny took another step back.
Oh, sorry. I was lost in thought. I'm certainly glad I didn't barrel into you.
Oh, no worries. I was in my own head as well. How are things?
Oh, I guess that could be worse. Business is pretty slow, as usual. Maybe it will pick up with the dragon in the area. By the way, I owe you thanks. A trio of adventurers came by based on a recommendation you made, and they bought a couple of items from me. Thanks to you, I was able to break even this month.
Have you ever considered, I don't know, lowering your prices just a tad? You might get more profit if you do.
Lower my prices? But my magical items and enchantments are the best. No one else in town can even compare to my work.
Yeah, I will admit you are the best. But other people in town are more affordable and therefore are more likely to get business. I totally get it. But I'm afraid your pride may be getting in the way of your success.
Noswald grunted as he walked past Tessica.
I shouldn't have to lower my standards. If people want the best magical items possible, then they should be willing to fork out the gold.
Tessica watched him venture off down the street, and then she resumed her own trek back to Lilies and Lilacs. The sun was much closer to its zenith, and the city felt way more densely packed. It was funny what difference an hour made. Clusters of 3, 4, and 5-person groups of out-of-towners strolled up and down Autumn Bliss's avenues, and many of them had large travel sacks on their backs. Multiple times, groups of people asked her about places to stay. Firstly, she mentioned that she was the owner of her own tavern and inn, but rooms were limited. Tessica mentioned her great food and drink specials, which seemed to perk the adventurers up. While it was on her mind, she told them about Noswald's Arcane Emporium, the Goddess's Garden, and about Pork's Pint, if they were looking for more rowdy crowds. As she moved down the street, her chest felt warm and tingly. Just like Tessica, Noswald, Fanica, Jeremiah, and Garen were small business owners, trying to live the dreams of freedom and success. To her surprise, Lilies and Lilacs was fairly packed, with all the tables filled and dozens of people around the bar. Zeddy was passing out drinks with one of the trays, while Morden was behind the bar. Morden gazed up at Tessica with frantic eyes.
Thank the goddess, you're back!
Yes. Give me a moment to get my bearings, and then we're going to be all right.
Tessica's body moved with extreme haste, and she nearly danced between the tables. Zeddy zipped behind her and beside her, and the pair of them were like performers. While Zeddy had been in the zone before, she appeared to be more relaxed with Tessica's help. To make the job faster, Tessica took one side of the room while Zeddy took the other. Some of the patrons, most of which were out-of-towners, were a little impatient. They grumbled at Tessica, but once they had their drinks, they started to mellow out. A majority of the patrons were sympathetic. Within the next 20 minutes, all of the drink orders were taken care of. The common room was quite lively, but everything was under control. Tessica leaned behind the bar, and Morden stood beside her. Zeddy had elected to take her hour lunch break, and she wasn't in the tavern at the moment.
Great job, as always. Before I showed up, how long was it packed?
Oh, not that long. Perhaps about 20 minutes. Most of the people who come in said they wanted a nice place to recharge themselves, and a bunch of locals recommended us.
Yes. Aw. I certainly hope they didn't tell these out-of-towners we were a quiet place. I love the business. But I wonder if we will get more packed.
I wonder if all these people are here about the dragon.
Well, it's not for the sunsets, that's for sure.
Vonrad came over to the bar.
Hey there, Miss Tess. Just wanted to tell you that all the rooms are booked through the next week at least.
Really? That's great news. Hey, Vonrad, in your experience, has there ever been a dragon in Autumn Bliss before?
A dragon in Autumn Bliss before? Well, let me think. Well, to be honest, I've seen a lot of strange things happen to our lovely little town. As a matter of fact, we did have a dragon that nestled in the area. Now, where did that blasted creature keep its lair?
A deep and steady hush came over the crowd as more and more adventurers turned around and stared to where Tessica, Morden, and Vonrad were talking. People waved their hands at those still conversing, and Tessica watched as silence gripped the room. Her stomach danced in place.
Oh, so you all want to hear his story too, do you? Well, you'll have to forgive me. It's been over 50 years since my last dragon experience. While I tell you all the story, it might jog my memory where the nest was. Morden, my boy, please get me some more of that ogre red. Some wine will soothe the ache in my throat.
Vonrad took a seat at one of the bar stools, and Morden gave him a glass of red wine. Tessica propped up her head on her hands, with her elbows on the bar. When she was a little girl, she often loved hearing all the fun stories Vonrad had about the thousands of adventures that he had encountered in his long life. Vonrad sipped the wine.
It all began on a chilly winter morning, when the first roar was heard throughout the town. I was a young boy then, on the cusp of finally gripping the crucible of manhood, but not quite so old yet. My best friends and I were playing in the snow, building forts and throwing snowballs at adults we didn't like. Innocent childhood games. When the first roar rippled through the crisp air, my friends and I froze in place, for we had never heard that sound before. For us, it was exciting, but for the adults, it was truly terrifying.
Wait, so this must have been well before my grandmother started this tavern. She never mentioned a dragon attack before.
It was before your grandmother came to Autumn Bliss. I met your grandmother when she first came to town as an adventurer. This event probably happened 10 years before she ever came.
Oh, sorry to interrupt. Please continue.
Oh, no worries, child. Or rather, boss. Anyway, I distinctly remember hearing 3 roars that morning, all of them distant, but each one closer than the last. Well, the whole town called an emergency meeting. And back then, there wasn't an adventuring guild post here, so we didn't have any out-of-towners who ever came to us. Back then, we were an out-of-the-way city.
So, what did the mayor do?
Well, he sent out a messenger all the way to the nearest largest city at the time, the city of Black Plains. I seem to remember it took over a month for our messenger to return. In that time, the dragon had been eating cows from the farms in the area. Oh, we weren't allowed to go out as much for fear of being snatched up.
Vonrad sipped his wine again.
Well, a month after the messenger got back, the dragon had started flying over the city. It often roared overhead, as if to establish dominance.
Ooh, what color was it?
The dragon? It was light blue, but its wings on the underside and its belly were a sort of cream yellow color. That's how we could tell it was in the sky at all. Anyway, around that same time, adventurers started coming into town. Granted, we didn't have these sort of numbers, but we had not had any adventurers before, so even a dozen was exciting. Well, shortly after that, adventurer parties started searching for the dragon's lair.
Vonrad frowned and then gazed into nothingness for a while.
If memory served, the first wave of adventurers were all hunted down and killed by the dragon.
One of the out-of-towners groaned loudly, and the pressure in the room seemed to get even more prickly.
Yes, I seem to remember none of them came back alive, and the dragon set fire to several outlying farms for our insolence. But the mayor sent another messenger, and another month went by.
Tessica studied the faces of the adventurers in the room. More than a half dozen had the color drained from their skin, and they stared transfixed at Vonrad. It was a compelling story. But Tessica also wondered how many of those here for the dragon actually faced dragons previously.
In fact, the second and third waves were also killed for sport. Oh, that dastardly dragon landed on Town Hall and challenged us to send more adventurers her way, as she had laid eggs and had babies to feed in the near future.
Babies? She had eggs?
Yes, she did. Well, our mayor decided to send a letter to someone more influential. He sent a letter to the king.
Wait, like the king of our country?
Yes. You see, we were desperate. That king was the grandfather of the current queen, mind you. Anyway, we didn't think anything would happen.
A wide smile spread across the older man's face.
Oh, I haven't thought about it in so long, but I just remembered where the nest was. Oh, before I get to that, a month after, we sent a letter to the king. The royal army came to aid us, a whole battalion. They scoured the area and eventually found the dragon's nest.
The old man paused and gave the common room another broad smirk.
Well, the dragon had carved out a large lair in the mountains, somewhere to the east. If I had to bet gold, I would say that this new dragon might have found that old lair and moved in.
A small series of murmurs started rippling through the crowd.
I should warn you, though, for those of you who have never tangled with a dragon before, don't take this lightly. Now that I think about it, I've seen many adventurers leave Autumn Bliss determined to slay the dragon. Well, not only did they die, but they earned the wrath of the dragon for the rest of us. So, if you're going to go, then make sure you have what it takes.
Small conversations started bubbling up in the common room, and soon Vonrad, Tessica, and Morden were forgotten.
Wow, that was a great story. Who ended up killing the dragon?
Well, according to the official record, Prince Corrigan, who later became the next king, dealt the blow that silenced the monster's life. However, I heard from a reliable source that it was actually the prince's squire, a knight named Perica Zontgomery, who slew the dragon.
Wait. As in, Perica. Perica the Valiant?
The very same. She was a legendary knight if there was ever one.
I wonder what happened to the eggs.
Oh, it's funny you mention that. The eggs were obtained and taken back to the royal capital. Ever hear of the Azure Dragon Riders?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone here... Wait. Those dragons came from Autumn Bliss?
Technically, yes. Oh, I just hope these adventurers don't make it worse for our lovely little town.
Do you really think one of them will be able to stop the dragon?
I honestly don't know. Do you?
I hope so. Well, hello, miss. What can I get for you?
A woman dressed in white robes and a dingy and scuffed breastplate stepped up to the bar. She was clearly an out-of-towner based on her leather traveling boots, her apparent armor, and her spiked morningstar dangling from her belt. The woman wore a pointed tip helmet, which she removed and placed on the flat of the bar. Her hair was black with hints of lighter brown at the roots. A set of kind gray eyes glimmered at Tessica. The woman had a holy symbol of a heart with an open eye in the middle.
I don't know if I need ogre wine. Or something harder.
Zeddy walked over and leaned on the bar.
If you want something really hard, we do have Dustfire whiskey.
Oh, goddess. No, I'm not in that bad a mood. Do you have any good rock gnome brew?
We have several. We have an autumn stout, an orchard pale ale, and a cinnamon-flavored beer that's our most popular at the moment.
Okay. How about 4 autumn stouts, 1 for me, and the rest for my party.
The cleric gestured over her shoulder to a table where 3 others sat. A pair of half-fae and a rock gnome conversed with one another. The rock gnome was some sort of mage, and he wore a long black leather coat. He was the shortest of the group, with a bald head and a menacing grin on his face. One of the half-fae out-of-towners was a male with brown hair tied in a long ponytail. He wore leather armor and had a pair of thin swords at his hip. The other half-fae was a woman with a shield and a vicious-looking axe at her hip. She wore metal armor and had a helmet, too.
And by the way, some of the townsfolk mentioned this was a pretty nice place. And at first glance, I'd have to say I agree.
Thank you. This place has been in my family for over 45 years. My name is Tessica. This is my bouncer extraordinaire, Zeddy.
Oh, hi there. My name's Bach, a cleric of Vanya. Nice to meet you.
Vanya, huh? The goddess of mothers? That's a Crimson Coast deity, isn't it?
Yeah. It's safe to say we're far from home. Not many people around these parts know about my goddess. Have you ever been to the Crimson Coast?
A few times, yes. I was once an adventurer too, and I came from the Romantra Gladelands. Wow. It's been a while since I thought about home, or those who left home with me.
Survivor's guilt?
A cold spasm flashed in Tessica's chest, and it got even chillier when Zeddy's usual happy expression fell away.
Yeah, I understand. This is my second party. I sympathize with you. I've been there.
Thank you.
Don't mention it. I'm kind of the mom of the group. You wouldn't believe how much dumb shit my party members have done.
Oh, I could trade stories.
Oh. Come, have drinks with us then.
For a brief moment, Zeddy looked at Tessica.
Go. If I need help, I'll punch someone in the face.
Zeddy smiled and silently worded, "Thank you." Tessica watched her drift over to the table, and she had a small frown crease over her face. Tessica knew a little about Zeddy's past, but not enough to understand like Bach apparently did.
Oh, the world weeps when a beautiful lady like yourself frowns.
Tessica turned her attention to the man talking to her. He was a tall, broad-shouldered, out-of-towner, with short brown hair, a pair of brown eyes, and a wide smile. The man wore sophisticated and elegant clothing that looked more appropriate on a stage performer rather than an adventurer.
Excuse me? Were you talking to me?
Well, of course, you are the most beautiful woman in the room.
Listen, is there something I can help you with? Would you like a drink?
What I would like is some of your time.
Sorry, I'm a busy person, and my time is only devoted to getting people drinks or food. Would you like either of those?
I'll take an ogre wine, please. White, if you have it.
Tessica reached under the counter and took out a fairly good vintage white ogre wine. She poured a glass and set it before the gentleman.
The vintage costs 2 gold per glass.
The man grinned and placed 5 golden coins on the bar.
Please, keep the rest as a sign of my admiration for you. Buy yourself something pretty.
No.
She only took 2 coins and then walked away. Tessica stepped behind Morden, who was helping another couple of ladies. She placed a hand on his back, and Morden looked back at her.
Hey, do you see that guy in the fancy suit?
Yes?
He's bothering me. If he needs anything, please help him.
Yes, ma'am.
The night continued on, and the strange man eventually left to the tavern. A lone figure stood before the quest board, and he studied the pieces of paper. He didn't look like an adventurer, but he was dressed in traveler's attire. Tessica walked up to the man.
Hi there. Interested in a quest? Sorry, the ones we have aren't that great.
I see that. I wonder why they are so different than the other quest boards I've seen in my travels.
Oh, are you a merchant?
No, not a merchant, just a traveler. I love seeing new places and new taverns. I understand there are several others in town, yes?
Yes, there are. Those places have way better quests than we have. If you have a mind to do something a little dangerous, they have better opportunities than we have.
My adventuring days are long behind me. I think I might go see what quests they have, if you excuse me.
Are you sure you wouldn't like a drink or something?
No, thank you. I am here on business, so I cannot indulge. Farewell, my dear Miss Oliver.
A slimy finger trailed up and down Tessica's insides as the man walked away.
Excuse me, ma'am. Can my friends and I get another round?
Of course.
She beamed one more troubled glance toward the door before going to the bar.